What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast dedicated to you, the digital agency owner that wants more freedom and to scale a lot faster while having a lot more fun. And on today's episode, we have an amazing guest where he's going to talk about how to build an amazing internal content team, how to manage them, how to structure them. It's going to be a really good episode. So let's go ahead and jump into the show. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So tell us who you are and what do you do?
Ryan Sargent, I'm the Director of Content Marketing at Verblio. Verblio, we like to say, is the world's friendliest content creation platform. But in a nutshell, that means that we connect people who need content with writers who produce it. We've got a marketplace of several thousand writers. And I like to think we're the sweet spot. We're not necessarily going to produce the world's best 5,000 word piece of thought leadership, but we're going to do better than the robots that keep cropping up and producing content for pennies that doesn't ever seem to fool Google.
I love the robots, right? Well, let's go ahead and kind of jump into it and talk about, because one of the most important things for agencies that are developing content is to build an amazing team. And a lot of people don't know, well, what's the right structure? How do I manage them? So do you want to talk about the structure first or managing them?
Sure. I think I should probably kind of preface the whole conversation by saying that so much of what I've learned about this whole very large, very important topic is coming from folks I've gotten to speak with on my podcast, and that. So I don't want to take total credit for any of these ideas. I've gotten the chance to learn in the content bounce house from all sorts of folks, and yeah, the structure seems to be really important, and the order you make your hires seems to really set the stage for a lot of what the success can look like.
Cool. So what is the best structure or where to start?
One of the things that I've seen really consistently is that having someone who really owns that managing editor role is a linchpin of the whole team structure. Oftentimes, a director level person like me will end up working a lot on strategy and where does the content need to go. This is particularly true of in-house teams, I think. And looking at what kind of content are we creating, why are we creating that content, and then ultimately someone's got to make sure that the calendar keeps chugging and that the trains run on time and the lights stay on. And that kind of managing editor seat, if you can manage to fill it with its own person, with someone who specializes in that kind of project management, you're off to a really great start, and it becomes so much easier to make sure the content gets produced on time.
Yeah, I've seen that with a lot of agencies as well. As like you bring in this kind of CMO level person and they're all focused on strategy, but they're not willing to, roll up their sleeves and really kind of get down, get their hands dirty. Versus, that managing editor could write content probably from the very beginning and then develop a process and then manage people under them. Is that right?
Yeah, and the process is it's not really a hire, right? It's not a person or doesn't live on the org chart, but having that process is the other big key there. I think over and over again, I keep hearing from folks, Tommy Walker, John Bonini, that having that process is so critical to making sure that no matter what strategy you're pursuing, you find success. The process also helps you generate content from a lot of different sources. If the process is set up to, for example, support a sales team for an in-house content group, or at an agency, seamlessly shift from research and in audience insights mode into generating the content with, say, freelancers or a marketplace, then you've set up a process that's going to be repeatable and that's going to generate efficiency all on its own.
Love it. And so now after we have this managing editor, what's the next kind of
You need
pawn
content.
in the puzzle?
Yeah, you need content. And that's where I was surprised to learn everyone's doing it a little differently. And the hybrid model, not in terms of are we in the office or not, but where we're getting our content from is totally normal. For every agency that's producing all of their content in-house, there are multiple agencies that are producing some in-house, outsourcing other pieces of content creation. And the same is true for in-house teams. So this was a place where agencies and in-house marketing teams are operating exactly the same way. Whether you're getting that content from freelancers or from a marketplace or generating it in-house, everyone's mixing and matching, depending on the type of content often, and also depending on your industry. If you're in a B2C world, a lot of e-commerce writing, a lot of social media posts, then maybe you're able to outsource more of it than if you're producing B2B white papers. But don't think that just because you've hired a freelancer, you're by yourself. That's totally normal these days.
What's the best way to manage, your team once you have it? Because I'm I'm not good at managing, honestly, right? Like I look back at hires we've done at the agency, even at this business. I was telling someone the other day, I just want to hire really smart people, give them the direction, and let them manage. Because if I'm managing content writing, like I'm just going to get bored of it, honestly, and just go on. And I think a lot of agency owners are that way as well.
People management is hard. I think it's a skill kind of all into itself, and that that can be a tough thing to balance alongside all of the other responsibilities. I think especially at an agency where promoting the agency is happening alongside building things for clients on top of, right. There's so many kind of moving pieces there, and I think it's one of the questions that content marketers haven't entirely solved. I think one of the classic questions is, as a head of content, should you be reading every single thing that your team produces? And then once they're producing dozens of things a week, does your answer change? And for for my money, yeah, if you're running a content team, you got to read it all. At the same time, I think until you're reading something that looks mostly finished, you should be pretty hands off. I don't want to have my fingers in every single piece of content from the beginning, because I want to show my team that I trust them, for starters. I love kind of the alchemical process that comes up with some really off the wall ideas when I'm not sitting there reminding everyone what our content strategy for the quarter is every single day. Sometimes we come up with the best ideas from kind of letting something simmer in the pot. At the same time, it's my responsibility to make sure everything we put out is good. So I have to read it all.
That's tough. I'm glad I'm not a content manager. I'd be like, can you just put this on books on tape for me?
Yeah. Two times speed.
That's right. Yes. Well, now I do it three times speed and be like, sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks reading it. What also? Let's kind of focus a little bit. What is what's the best way in order to make sure you're hiring the right person? Because you've hired a lot of content people, right? And especially some agency owners that are new, or not new, but they're building a team. What's some things that they need to look for that they might not be aware of?
When you're hiring folks for the content team that's going to sit in your building, or in the internet, on your Zoom account, um, I think I have a couple go-to interview questions that really make or break it for me. And one of them is, tell me about the best piece of content you've ever built. And how did you know it was the best piece of content you ever built? And the answer to the second half is at least as important as the answer to the first half. And my hope there is that I hear about a piece of content that isn't a standard blog post, and that I hear about ways to measure the success of content that are a lot more conversion centric than Google Analytics. So if I hear, well, I wrote this blog post that ranked number one without me ever having to go optimize it, and I checked on Search Console, and it just crushed it. I'm like, okay, that answer is technically correct, right? You have met the minimum bar for a content creator. But if I hear about a time when we built a landing page to build an award to give our customers, and it turned into our most successful case study down the road that in turn brought in these 10 leads over here. Now that I know that this person is thinking about content in this full funnel holistic way, they're not afraid to try something outside the box, and they're going to kind of marry that creative side with the analytical side. And I think that balancing the art and the craft there is really important. And so that's the kind of question that I think everyone should be asking when they're interviewing folks for our content team.
What's the worst answer you've ever heard, or the biggest bullshit answer you've ever heard?
I get nervous when I hear about viral social media posts. I think that that's kind of the general theme. Like, and when
It went viral. Well, what viral? Like, got sick?
well, and when it was about their personal account or their side hustle, I get even more concerned, because like, if you can very authentically convince 10,000 people on Instagram that you are incredibly passionate about this niche thing that they are also passionate about, that's great. That's a skill. That's not what I'm hiring you to do for my brand, or in the agency's case, for many other people's brands. And maybe it's a social media specialized role. I don't want to discount folks who give that answer like entirely, but that's in general. I'm like, okay, we need to dig a little deeper, or how are you going to answer the next set of questions?
Are you ever asking them what's their process to, developing the article or the blog or the piece of content? Like how they're going about researching it, how they're thinking about it, that kind of stuff?
Yes, I think especially for freelancers, that's my go-to question is, tell me how you become an expert in this topic. Um, Over and over again, we hear and see and live, in my case, this world where when you outsource content, the hardest part is getting a writer that really knows the industry. And for agencies, that problem is massively magnified because every client is in a different world, and you need to find writers that can manage all of those different verticals. So the ability to vet a freelancer often comes down to how well they can engage with that. And then it also comes down to the brief. And so one way to phrase that question is to say, what are the three most important things you need in a brief? And if they talk about things like industry knowledge, provide me some great sources to get started, give me your content strategy, and then most importantly, what is this article's reason for being? What is the purpose? And again, I can't take credit for that. I've talked with Jimmy Daly, Emily Triplett Lentz, a whole bunch of folks about this. And if that purpose of the content isn't something that the freelancer expects in the brief, I get a little nervous. The red flag on that one, especially when outsourcing content, is when I hear a lot more about a style guide and a lot less about how we're going to come up with the knowledge required to write the piece. I appreciate it when a freelancer adheres very closely to my brand style guidelines. That's obviously part of the gig. At the same time, if you didn't use Oxford commas, I can go put those in. I know how to do that. Not my first rodeo. If you don't research the topic, we never got off the ground, and it's going to be a pretty short relationship.
Gotcha. I love it. Well, this has all been amazing, Ryan. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the audience listening in?
I think that when agencies are considering kind of how to structure teams, how to build teams, there's some great resources out there. Obviously, you can go listen to the conversations I've had on the Content Bounce House. It's verblio.com/podcast. But don't hesitate to reach out. That's the number one lesson. Everyone out there is struggling with similar things. And so go ask other agencies how they're structuring, what's working, what's not working. Make a friend. That would be my big piece of advice at the end.
Awesome. And if people want to check out what you guys do, is there a place they can go and check you guys out?
Yeah, if you're interested in figuring out how to get content from Verblio, accessing our marketplace, verblio.com, just right there on the homepage is where I'd send you. And verblio.com/podcast for more info and insights.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Ryan. Everyone, go check out Verblio. We've used them for many, many years and recommend them all the time. So go check them out. And if you guys like this episode, and make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, And I'd love for you guys to do, I normally don't do this, but if you guys are listening to this episode, take a screenshot of it, whether it's on Apple Play or whatever it is. Take a screenshot, it, share it out on social, tag us, and let us know you're listening, and we will comment back. So until next time, have a swank day.